Good morning. Glad you're here this morning. Oh, Ben, that's loud. Okay, all right, good. Now everyone's awake. Thanks for coming in here, be a part of our service. For those that are here, those in the parking lot, and those that are view us maybe later. Mary Jane has an announcement she needs to make and wants to make, so you have to speak up loud. This is our microphone.
Okay, ladies, hopefully you found one of these flyers in the foyer or in your bulletin. It tells all about our latest ministry, which is going to be on July 19th, Sunday. Come at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do this right before the morning worship service. What we're going to do is Project Hope for the Homeless. They have a program called Breakfast Bags. So some of their residents are staying in hotels because they need a social distance. So they take these breakfast bags to the hotel and give them to the people for breakfast, obviously. So we're gonna supply stuff for them. So if you, down in the foyer, there's little cards like this, has one of the items that's gonna go in the bag. Bring it in for me, please. Then there's also, this is new this week, there's little cards you can fill out. It just have words of encouragement or your favorite verse or something like that. We're gonna put these in the bag, kind of like a little ministry for us. Don't put your name on them or contact information. Just put words of encouragement or, like I said, Bible verses or whatever. So these are downstairs. Please bring these in by Friday, the Friday before our event. You'll see things like granola bars, protein bars, fruit cups, yogurt, plastic juice bottles. So that's the kind of thing we're just asking you to do. And of course at 10, anybody can come, 10 o'clock. Ladies, even if you're a man, do you want to fill these out? You can do it. It's ladies ministry, but we'll let you write words of encouragement. Pastor, over. And you can bring one of these. If you're not going to be there that Sunday, but you want to still be part of it, just bring something in. That'd be fine too. Thank you.
Let's open in prayer. Father God, we are grateful for the day you've given us. Father, it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, skies are blue. Father, but most of all, we are just grateful that you hear us when we call upon your name. Father, we are grateful for your love and grace that embellishes our life. Father, we ask that you would just be with us today as we study your words, we sing songs of praise to you. Father, we ask that you be pleased. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Good morning to those in the parking lot. As requested, I'm going to just call off the name of the song that we're going to sing so that they have a little bit of a heads up because we have words. Please stand if you're able and you wish to worship the Lord with us this morning. America the Beautiful.
Is in you, Lord, my strength is in you, Lord. Shall rise to thee.
Thank you so much, ladies, for your gift of music. Something that I've always envied. I just don't have it, so play the radio, that's about it. When trouble strikes, trouble comes in various different forms. Sometimes it's finances, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's health. I mean, it just adds up, ratchets up the anxiety of life. And I think all of us would feel a little bit of that just from the pandemic that's going on. This week, Beth and Hannah came up. They're Lake Erie college students that were at Lake Erie last year. They came up to visit. And Beth related how she had spent 26 days in her room at her house because she contracted COVID. She said, I was just tired a lot. I just wasn't really sick. I wouldn't have any of those other symptoms. He said, lose my sense of smell. But nobody else in her family was ill. She had spent 5 days at a friend's house. That night, got a text from her friend saying she probably should not be around people because her father would come down with it. Soon enough, everybody in the house that she spent had it. So they had a quarantine house, but she spent her time in her bedroom. But she said, I got through it, I'm fine. There aren't any ill effects, and I'm planning to go back to school. I think school next fall, but someplace else, not Lake Erie. Beth, Hannah is planning to come back to Lake Erie, so we look forward to seeing her again. So she had her troubles, and everyone all has their troubles. We have things that they call upon us, and sometimes they just drop right out of the sky, it seems, and there it is. So we look at 2 Kings this morning. And now I know it's the 4th of July weekend, and I fully intended on doing a 4th of July sermon. But every time I got going on it, it was like the Lord was saying, no, I want you to talk about Hezekiah. And I came in this room, I think it was on Tuesday, and I walked around this room for like 20 miles on the carpet. Sorry, guys. And it was 85 degrees in here, and the Lord just said, look, I just want this done. This is my church. You do what I ask you to do. So I thought, that's a good plan. I'll go with that. So 2 Kings this morning, chapter 18, verses 13 through 16. And then we'll pick up a few other things later. Verse 13. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judea and captured them. So Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent a message to the king of Assyria in Lachish. That was one of the strongholds of Judah, by the way, Lachish. I have done wrong. Withdraw from me. I'll pay you whatever you demanded me. The king of Assyria extracted from Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver, 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the temple of the Lord and the treasures of the royal palace. And at this time, Hezekiah, king of Judah, stripped off the gold which he had covered the doors of the doorposts in the temple of the Lord and gave them to the king of Syria. Now, let's do a little overview here of who these people are. Okay? Sennacherib. His father is Sargon II. He's the one who conquered Babylon. They dug a trench, diverted the river that ran through the city of Babylon, and the troops walked in through that and conquered the city. He was killed in war, in another battle, and his body was never recovered. His son feared his father would be cursed in the afterlife and live as a beggar. Now, that was part of his belief system, that if you were a warrior and your body was never buried, the gods would look at you as this way, and this is the way you had to live. And he believed also that his father had offended maybe the gods of the Babylonians. So he incorporated part of his worship as them because he was afraid the same thing that happened to his father would happen to him because he had done something awful. He was not the oldest, but he was the oldest living. Others had served their father in the war and been killed. His father had 2 wives. He was a product of the second wife that his first wife died, and all her children were killed in battle alongside their father. So he stayed in town. Dad decided this is a bad plan to have my kids come to war with me. So he was the royal prince under his father for 14 years, completely loyal to his father. And I realized I misplaced a couple of letters there. I don't know what that would say otherwise. But here's the thing. He knew what it was like to be the king. He was basically the king in charge while Dad was out fighting these battles. Dad was the warrior king. He was the guy that people bow down to and all that stuff. But he was loyal to his father, completely loyal. So who is this guy that's completely loyal? Well, he is in charge now. Father's killed. There was a little bit of an internal battle about who was really going to run the show. There were a couple people that decided that it was time for this family to be out of charge, and he found out about it and just killed them all. That was his plan. That's how he worked it. That's how he did it. And it worked out for him, I guess. And then he made Nineveh the capital city. His father did not. He made Nineveh the capital city. He built massive monuments to himself and basically scrubbed his father's name from the cities because he felt that there was a curse on his name and he didn't want to be associated with it. He bragged about his military conquest and his cruelty. They have found all these. The way the Assyrians did it, they would take a piece of stone and cut it lengthwise, so high, and then it would have 3 sides to it. On each side, they would tell a story. And they found a number of these. They talk about him. They talk about Hezekiah. They talk about the different battles that were there. But the curious thing, they only talk about the victories. There are no defeats on any of the things where they were defeated. They're just not even talked about. Like, it never really happened. And some people live their lives that way, but it's not a good place to learn from. Okay, so what happens? Well, there's a miscalculation by King Hezekiah. He joins a rebellion led by Babylonian leaders to say to the king of Syria, I'm sorry, we're tired of giving you our money. We're just not going to do it anymore. Well, Sennacherib crushes the rebellion of the smaller kingdoms and even threatens Egypt at this point. He comes back later, a couple years later, and destroys Babylon. I mean, to the point where there's not one stone standing upon another. He absolutely destroys it. He finds the guy that's in charge of all this. He had a stroke. He can't speak, but it doesn't matter to Sennacherib. He has him hanged, and a number of his cohorts as well. So there he is. Okay. So Hezekiah's first plan is to pay the man. So he strips the temple of all his valuables. It's nice he went to church, but for the wrong reasons. He empties the royal treasury, but the plan wasn't what Sennacherib wanted. He wanted his head on the lance, basically, because he had dared to rebel against him. So Sennacherib sends his top commander to crush Judea. And he's all the surrounding cities, all the surrounding towns have been conquered. And then the commander comes to Jerusalem. And he tells Hezekiah's people they send out to talk to him, look, might as well just give up. And if you're looking for help from Egypt, it's not going to happen. Okay? We've already taken care of that. He said, so here's your options. Okay? Surrender now, and we'll spare all the women and children, and we won't kill them. Basically, saying. And then he makes all these brags about the Assyrian power. Then he starts on the Lord their God and begins to ridicule them. He said, look, we conquered all these other towns. They called upon the Lord. It didn't help not one bit. All these other nations, they called upon their God. It didn't help one bit. You know, you people are worried. And then he begins to talk loud enough so the people on the wall can hear him. Okay? And he makes, if you will, good sense. Give up, because it's not going to happen. You're not going to survive. He tells them, you know, when you get tired of eating, drinking your own urine and eating pigeon poo, it'll be too late. Because we're going to kill everybody. And they put all this pressure on Hezekiah. So his plan A did not work. And I'm sure Hezekiah just didn't make this decision by himself. You know, kings have these people that are wise and smart, they understand the world and all that stuff, and they probably advised him to do this thing. We'll just pay him. Give him what he wants. We're done. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted more. He wanted Hezekiah's head. So, that plan doesn't work. Well, Isaiah is a contemporary of Hezekiah, the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah comes to him and said, don't worry about it. God's got it under control. Well, that's great to hear. It's good to hear. And you know, maybe you've been in a situation in your life and somebody's came up to you, don't worry about it. God's got it under control. Now, you should take comfort in that, but sometimes it's not enough. Really, what wasn't enough for him, for Hezekiah. So, plan has to come up with plan B. Okay? Want to guess what it is? Yeah, turn to the Lord. Chapter 19, if you will. Let's look at chapter 19. I mean, these guys you got him in it. You got them hemmed in. In fact, they're I forget what they're called. Their little story about this whole thing said he was like a bird in a cage, Hezekiah was. They had him. He wasn't going to get away. Nobody was going out. Nobody was going in. What they didn't realize is David had long ago carved through solid rock down to an aqueduct below Jerusalem, and they had all the water they wanted. Whether they're going to have food or not, I'm not sure. But anyway, verse 1 says, King Hezekiah heard this, tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and went to the temple of the Lord. Okay, so he goes to the temple. Verse 5, we'll pick it up there. Then King Hezekiah's officials came to Isaiah. Isaiah said to them, tell your master, this is what the Lord says. Do not be afraid of what you have heard. Those words which the underlings of the king of Assyria has blasphemed. Listen, I'm going to put such a spirit in him that when he hears this report, he will return to his own country. There, have him cut down by the sword. So Isaiah comes and tells them this. This one, don't worry about what he said. This is what God says. He said, there's no meaning. Okay, these people are just, But I'm not so sure. King is like, okay, yeah, but where's the proof in all that plan? And have you ever asked God that? How does this work out? Okay, I need to know from beginning to end. And God's not obligated to give us beginning to end. We are just to serve one another and Him. So it happens. God moves. 185,000 Syrian soldiers die in the night. In the night, they are killed. In the story, it says mice came and ate the bowstring, so they didn't have anything to shoot arrows with, so they took it home. They didn't talk about anything else. Sennacherib is later murdered by his own sons. Okay? Now they escaped to another country because the brother who's going to take Sennacherib's place is in charge, and he decides he doesn't want to be a part of all that. Notice this. Sennacherib's grandsons turned to Christianity. There was something that happened during all that time. Somewhere, somebody shared the love of God to them. This is 900 years, 700 years before Christ is even born. They turned to Christianity, and for a long time in Turkey, there was a strong Christian group that was there. They were direct descendants of Sennacherib's family. So, as awful as the man was, as awful as the things that he did, God had a greater plan. And many times in our lives, we whine, if you will, about this or that. And we are not privy to the greater plan. But all God is saying is what? Do you trust me? Because God never makes a mistake. He never is cruel. And he's always loving. It's about the people. So what do we learn today? No matter how sound your plan looks, it may not be God's. That's my, if you have a fault, if I have a fault, and I have many, this is my greatest one right here. I'm a planner. I like to plan things all the way through to the end, and it looks sound, it looks good, and I get to where I want to go, okay, but it might not be God's. I had planned to do a 4th of July message for today, and that was not God's plan. That was mine. I had the thing nearly done. I delete, boom, gone. So I should have saved it for next year, but nonetheless, it's gone. Okay? But this is how it's hard. This is what's hard for us. How unorthodox God's plan seems. Trust it. Trust it. God had a bigger plan than just delivering Hezekiah from the hand of Sennacherib. He had a bigger plan. He had thousands of people that would trust Christ in his homeland. And his troops or whoever would take it back to the homeland. Okay? When my brother-in-law was in the Desert Storm, he was in the area, staging area, where they put the equipment on a helicopter or whatever, and off they would go. And that's what his job was. He said, but also not too far from where he was working, they put up the camps where they were keeping all the Iraqis that had surrendered. And he said we had a group that came in and they were handing out materials. They had set up a couple of tables. They had all this literature of Muhammad and all those there in a big table. And then for some reason, he said, I don't know if the government knew it or not because they're very anti-Christian. He said, they also put up a table of Christian material in their language. He said, they began to fight over the Christian material to the point where one of the guys that was in charge would take the Bible and rip them in half so everyone would have a piece. Okay? And he said it was, he asked one guy, he said, what's the big deal? I thought they'd be all looking at they know that. And the religious leaders had said that it was a holy war. Okay? And apparently your God is bigger than our God because we lost. That was the simple thinking. And Alan began to think about it. We were talking about it. I said, you realize that Iraq, Kuwait, and some other places now that our Americans are involved in are part of what they call the 1040 window. You know what that is? The latitude, the longitude makes up this square where it's just totally dark. Okay, war's never a good time. It's never good. It's horrible. Death and destruction is what it's really all about. But Americans bring a lot of things to cultures that we invade or be a part of or whatever. Some not so good, but always Christianity comes with us. There will be some troops or group of people or whatever that will come and bring it. So in God's plan, I think, Al and I were talking about it, he said he wanted to open up that 1040 window. And the church is growing in those countries. Even though they're severely suppressed, God has this very unorthodox at times plan. I want us to look at verse 2 Kings again, chapter 19, verse 32 and 34. Therefore, this is what the Lord says concerning the king of Syria. He will not enter the city. This is Isaiah speaking to the king. He will not enter the city or shoot an arrow here. He will not come with a shield, or build up a siege ramp against it. By the way he came, he will return. He will not enter the city. I will defend the city and save it for my sake and for the sake of David, my servant. If you belong to God, will he not have the same compassion that he had on a city full of people? Absolutely. And he proved it on Calvary. Christ died for us on Calvary. For my sin, your sin, that we could not pay the debt that was owed, he paid it for us. There is no getting around that. There's no place that we can go where God is not there with us. The psalmist writes that even if I make my bed in hell, you are there with me. There's nowhere you're going to slip through the crack and God is going to forget all about you. And many times we feel that way. We feel like, God has just abandoned me and I got all these issues. And the problem typically is this: you're not listening. When John was young, he kind of, and sometimes I wanted to communicate to him. I'd hold his face, make him look at me, and I would say to him, "You're not listening." Well, one day John was trying to tell me something. I was speaking to him. He walked up to me, put his hands up, his little hands on my face, he looked at me and he goes, "You're not listening." And I thought, okay, I need to listen. I think many times God is like that, saying, you're not listening. You're not going to get a registered letter that says, signed by God. He's not going to write things in the sky. Okay? He's not going to speak to you in some big booming voice. Typically, when God speaks, it's a small voice. And you know, in your heart of hearts, it's from God. The question is, do you want to do what God is telling you to do, as unorthodox as it sounds? So this week, as you are out and about, make sure you listen to that small voice. I know it's hard. I know it's a difficult time. Robin and I have been racking our brains maybe to try to get away someplace, but there's nowhere to go. Okay? Michael and Aaron want us to come visit. They work all day, and I'm like, Mike, here's the deal. We would come, but I'm not going to sit in your house and watch you work. I just can't do that. There's nothing open in North Carolina. The whole place is shut down, so we'll have to wait. Certainly, Robin would love to go see her parents, but Florida's having their issues, so we'll stay right here in Lake County and be happy about it. So, we need to pray for one another during this time, work together, and make sure we watch what we're doing. Let's pray. Father God, we're grateful this morning. We're thankful for those that have come. We're thankful for how you love us, how you keep us, how you wrap your arms around us and love on us, Father. And when times are difficult in our lives, you're certainly aware of it. It's not something that you're surprised by. But Father, many times it's for our own personal growth. Many times it's also to show your hand in our lives and how you solve these issues, how you bring about change in them. And Father, sometimes you ask us to work a little harder at something. But Father, it is a wonderful thing to know that in the end of the game, when I breathe my last, I will stand before you, not in my own righteousness, I don't have any, but in Christ's righteousness that you freely gave me. And that, Father, you welcome me home to a place where there's no more tears, there's no more crying, there's no more separation, there's no more pain. Father, we're grateful for all those things that you have promised us, Father, and we know one day they'll come to pass. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.